So here we are with Kent Johnson out of Columbus, Ohio. Kent, welcome to the show.
Franco, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Before we get started in the actual show, can you maybe share with the audience a little bit about you, the family history, how many generations, and then we'll get into the meat of it, so to speak.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a proud leader of a family business. I lead the company Highlights for Children. It was started in 1946 by my great grandparents, not one or the other. It was a husband and wife team late in life, taking all they learned through their careers in education, educational psychology, parenting, and they poured it into creating this company dedicated really to the children it serves. So I am fourth generation. I've got about 110 family members. We now have our first, as of this summer, our first several sixth gen have come into the fold. So we really believe that by staying family owned and focusing on the mission of the company, we can develop a spirit and a culture of stewardship of the company, and that's really essential to how we're trying to bring the business forward.
Well, you are clearly a proud family member and leader representing the family firm. And one of the things that I found interesting is the concept of chief purpose officer.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that and why that matters so much and how that keeps the family connected and where it came from?
Yeah, I mean, it's how to keep the family connected, but it also, what the reason I created the position was I felt there was a need to really strengthen the organization of everything we do as a company around purpose. So over time, we're a content company. We create magazines, books, we create content. So often there was a convolution, a way that the editorial content was connected to the mission and purpose. Like we talk about trying to create content that helps children become their best selves, creative, caring, confident, and curious. So we have this whole child mentality in our purpose. But what I realized was I needed everyone in the company to feel a connection and purpose, not to our mission, to our purpose, not just those who created content. So we decided to take our editor in chief, who was in a unique position, and add to her responsibilities a role of chief purpose officer. So she takes on the responsibilities of finding ways both internally, how do we connect everyone, wherever you are, operations, finance, accounting, IT, or editorial product development, connect everyone to the purpose. But also there was an externally focused component of the chief purpose officer to help me and help all our leaders articulate externally what the purpose of the company is. So again, talking about because we talk about the company, we say our vision for our company, if we're successful, is we're trying to build a more optimistic and empathetic world where all children can become their best selves. So we want to be advocates for children, not just publishers. We want to be proponents of the best approaches for childhood, the short, sweet season of childhood, not just a business. So that's a lot of what my chief purpose officer, that's her strategic focus, and she's got help. And I always say purpose and mission, it's in everybody's job description, not just hers. And it's interesting because at a family business, and other families might think about this too, Frank, I'd be curious what you think. Like the family has an imprint on the company, and we're always trying to figure out how do you make it sustainable over time, whether it's the values your family has. How do you put those values into the DNA of the organization? So I also am viewing like one of my success measurements for myself in my career, and I'm about 18 years in, but one of my success measures is, can we put the DNA of our mission and purpose into the culture of the company so that it's kind of irreversible, that it can't come out? And so that's a little bit also what we're trying to do long term around mission and purpose.
I think that's a really cool concept, injecting the purpose into the business and then being able to measure that purpose and the impact is actually quite profound.
And you have to make decisions according to your purpose. Like one big change for our company was back in 1972. So we were founded in 1946. In 1972, the family was, and I was only 3 at the time, the family was saying strategically, we want to stay a family business. And we're concerned that if we stay only in consumer publishing, a market up and down could swamp us. So there was a desire to diversify the company. So you say, okay, well, we could go into anything. So how do you decide about diversification? At that point, it was a consumer magazine company. And the decision was to look at the mission and purpose. We want to help children become their best selves. Where else are children that we could serve? And so what ended up happening is we bought a curriculum company back in 1972. And that led to us now having a whole consumer division, thinking about education, human development in the home, and also an education division where we build curriculum programs for young, all in the same age range, kids under 12. So we build the curriculum to help them become their best selves in school. We've built a lot and serve teachers, because if you can help the people who are helping children develop, that's an extension of the mission. So it does give us a strategic framework on M&A. It gives us a strategic framework on product development, and it gives the family a strategic framework of how do we decide, where do we want to grow, where do we want to be defensive, what should our strategy be. It has to always be rooted in mission and purpose to be, in our context, to be successful.
I'm so glad that you're bringing this up, because one of the things that I speak about, whether when I'm coaching or speaking to an audience, is everything we do as human beings, we do for a reason.
Right.
Right. Most of us don't know what that reason is. It's either based on the past, which is conditioning, wound based, story based, or it's based in the future, which is purpose based, contribution based, or what I call safe space. Right. Mm-hmm. And when one is clear on their purpose, it's pretty easy to make there's no, you're either on purpose or you're not. So, my personal purpose is I want to create a safer world. And the medium I choose to do that through is family-owned businesses, right? And I think when a company is clear in its purpose, that is the benchmark, as you're describing, on which every decision is based on.
That's right. No, we 100% believe that. And we believe it's the purpose, but we also do talk about our beliefs, because you have found some fundamental beliefs that inform your purpose. So, for us, like we say, we think of one of our foundational beliefs as a company is the idea that children are the world's most important people. So we've got a big, different places in the business, like on the wall, but we sort of, and we're not just saying that they're the most important because they grow up to be adults. Like, it's true that they do, but we think frankly, I think if we could organize society more around the idea of the value and importance of investing in our children, we would make a better society. But it also has to be a belief in our company. And it leads to some other, like the idea that childhood is a short, sweet season.
I love it. I love when you said that. I really love that.
When you have a 3-year-old, they're only 3 for 365 days. Like, it really matters how they spend their time, what the quality of content is, what kind of experiences the adults around that child can create for them. And we're a huge believer that the work of creating content, creating experiences for kids, it's really serious business. Like, we think this is like we're doing the most important work we could imagine when we invest in trying to create these experiences for kids. And I'm so blessed and grateful. The teams that build products for kids within our company are I would put them head to head with any teams creating any content for kids. They are passionately committed and take it so seriously, the quality that we're trying to put in for these kids. And that, again, it goes right back to mission and purpose, but also the beliefs of each minute really matters with children.
So, listener, I hope you pay attention to that. Each minute matters. We seem to forget that the adult at one point was a child.
Yeah.
Right? And that child can either have a positive experience or a negative experience, which becomes trauma, which then influences that child's decision making in the future.
And it's interesting. We can't make childhood perfect. And so, a lot of our parenting content and even what my Chief Purpose Officer, Chris Culley, is thinking about right now is, how do you help parents talk to kids about some of the bad things that are happening in the world, right? Kids will experience trauma either directly or indirectly because they're exposed to the news. But how we as adults support them through the trauma it really matters. We're thinking a little bit about children who have cancer patients. How do we help parents talk about disease to the kids in their life? So and we also, it's interesting. We talk about fun with a purpose. Like it doesn't always have to look like entertainment. Like a child struggling with a problem or trying to solve a puzzle, they might not be laughing, right? They may not be looking like they're having fun, but there's this concept of engagement that we really want with kids, the fun with a purpose, that they're not separate. You don't have the times you're learning and the times you're playing. In fact, for kids, humor, like jokes, the jokes and riddles and puns that kids will laugh at and engage in, that is a huge part of their socio-emotional development. So we love making joke books. I mean, we love humor in our magazines, visual humor, puns, wordplay. It's a way that kids' brains develop, but also the way their hearts and spirits develop with humor.
Do you think as adults, we forget the power of first of all, why? So curiosity.
Yeah.
And the power of humor. And why do you think that is?
Well, it's interesting. I'm not sure I'm going to get to the why, but yes, we lose track of some of the things that are important. And I'll say, so one of the things we're working on as a company organization is trying to make sure we have the climate, the way that people experience being in our organization that leads to healthy innovation. And one of the factors we're trying to build is playfulness and humor. So it turns out even adults, if you're working together in a group, if you laugh more, if there's more playfulness, you come up with more ideas. You solve problems more effectively. So a little bit of silliness, a little bit of humor creates an environment for us as adults where our brains work differently. So I think in the highest performing kind of group settings, we haven't lost sight of how humor and playfulness and how the curiosity of childhood can be brought to adult problems. I think there are times when the pressures of the day can beat us down and make us forget about that. And I don't believe in creative people and non-creative people. I believe in that we're all creative. And it's a question, I think of my role as a leader, as are we creating the environment that lets people's creativity come out in a positive way to impact what's going on at the company or in their group or in their work project. So I think we have to sort of keep that part of our childhood alive and use it as an adult in a very deliberate way. So I don't know why it is, but I think we take ourselves too seriously as adults sometimes, or there's these trappings and we can't laugh and make jokes. But we're definitely, and we're not the best at it at our company in terms of playfulness and humor. We don't score as high as we wish. So we're working on how do you make that environment? How do you bring to life the childlike play that causes such a rapid pace of learning in kids? I mean, it's a powerful concept.
One of the things that I bring up with my clients in our private practice is I talk about be playfully curious about yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Ask yourself, why did I behave that way? Why did I make that choice? Don't judge. Right. Because if we judge, there's no room for curiosity.
Yeah.
Right. And just look at it like I say, from a childlike curiosity perspective, cut yourself some slack and just ask why. So I wanted to ask a question. You were talking about measurements. How do you guys measure purpose? How do you score your purpose metrics?
That's a great question because I actually, I love spreadsheets. I'm actually a numbers guy, right? I'm trained in physics. I'm a recovered scientist, which so I love numbers. But when I look at a financial statement on each of our businesses, I have an intuitive sense how revenue dollars translate into how many kids reached. So there is some element of just counting the reach. How many lives are we impacting? How many kids are using our curriculum, for instance, in schools? How many subscribers do we have? But I think there's another piece, and it's actually fun. When we did our PR back, it's a little while ago, we printed and delivered our 1 billionth copy of Highlights magazine.
Oh my God.
Back in when we were 65. So it was back in 2006 or something like that. 2000, I can't remember, but when we were 65. 2011. And one of the things that the sort of speech we gave often was to talk about the impact on one kid and talk about the ways we know kids interacted with the fiction in our magazine to develop empathy and the humor, the goofus and gallant, like the cognitive development associated with puzzles, the emotional development associated with different aspects of creating the way we've inspired them to create. So it is important to not just get bogged up in numbers of reach, but to think about, is the quality of the impact, are we maximizing the quality of the impact one by one? And then I want our business teams and our, to get as deep and as far as possible. Here's a fun conversation. This shows me some impact. We were at a conference launching a preschool curriculum, a Highlights preschool curriculum, a couple weeks ago. And I was just sitting and watching at the booth. And one of a woman walked up who's an early childhood educator. And what do you say at the booth? We said, would you like to hear about our new Highlights curriculum? And she looked at the person who said it, and she said, no. And we're like, oh my gosh, like why? She said, first, I need to tell you how important and how impactful Highlights was on my life.
Wow.
And so she told us the story about being a kid, being encouraged by, I think, a teacher and her interaction. And then when she told that story, and we it was great because that lifts everyone's morale, including lifted hers to think of that great teacher she had and the experience. Then she said, I definitely want to hear about your curriculum now. So I do think like and this is something that only, companies that are old in the kids space have been around. We're really blessed that we sometimes hear from adults later in life talking to us about the impact their relationship with Highlights had on them. I mean, we've gotten requests, somebody saying my parent is nearing end of life, and they keep telling us how they were published in Highlights. Can you find the thing that was published, the letter, the drawing they sent in? And we jump on that immediately and get them a copy to sort of make that connection. And I just feel, and I try to tell our team, there are kids today who sometime in the future are going to thank or communicate with the people that none of whom work at the company now, who will work at the company in the next generation. And so it's I don't know how to measure that, Franco. I don't know how to capture that or count it. But to me, some of those things you don't count as numbers. You take it into your heart and you just have faith that if we do our jobs right, we're building more of that type of thing, some of which we'll never know about.
My coach of 21 years says, whenever we speak or address a group, you never know the impact your words are going to have in the future generation. Right. And I think it's because it's not about, what am I trying to say here? It's about giving the best of ourselves without any conditions.
Right.
Like there's no expectations, there's no attachments. We're just doing what we do because we love doing it.
Right.
Because it fulfills us. And, when we talk about purpose, one of the things that I've learned in my own personal journey is purpose has to start with self.
Yeah.
If I'm not living my purpose with myself, I can't live it out here. It's inauthentic. It falls flat in its face. So how are you guys living purpose from a charitable perspective? First of all, individually as Kent, and then as a business.
Yeah, I mean, my as an individual, my passion's early childhood. So I try to give personally and give with my volunteer time to things that affect young children, under 12, under 5. As a family, we're not a very big company, so we're not. We can change the world by what we do more effectively than just giving dollars away.
Right.
So we work very hard to have on the company side key impact partners. Ones where sometimes we're giving them know-how, we're licensing them content, and they have the ability to bring it to their communities through their platforms. I'll just give you a sense. We work. Our key partners are Save the Children, who can reach kids all over the planet and are already there. When we partner with them, we know they have people on the ground. We work with a group called the Starlight Foundation, supports kids in hospitals all across the country. And what I realized is we couldn't one by one work with hospitals for kids who were sick. Like we needed to have an organization that had a big footprint and the capabilities. And there's also a wonderful group, World Reader. They have technology to reach kids in the US, but all around the world. And we've had great relationships and content partnerships to bring content to kids who, through their platform, to expand their literacy opportunities. So those are some of the few. The other thing I would say is back in 1985, we actually, my uncle, who longtime employee, decided to start something called the Highlights Foundation. And we realized, again, not about necessarily giving away money, but the idea that because of our relationships in publishing and our passion and belief that quality content for kids was what matters, we could invest back in helping the community of authors and illustrators get better at their craft. And now it's expanded, and it does a lot of work trying to diversifying the voices that create stories for kids. And even now, it's evolved over time, but most of the activity, a lot of it's online and digital. It's called the Highlights Foundation, but a lot of it happens at the homestead of the founders of our company. So we're able to bring in people who maybe want to learn about writing their first kids novel or science and nature writing for kids. We're able to bring them to a retreat center in Northeast Pennsylvania, and under a nonprofit structure, really give them a curated, customized, wonderful experience to support creatives, all with the belief that the better aligned creatives are around this goal of creating curious, creative, confident, and caring kids, that will like benefit over time. So that's also something that's helped our family feel committed. And our employees get a benefit. Even though it's a separate 501c, our employees get to hear about it. And it just makes us all a little proud to think we play that unique niche role with content creators.
Like amazing story. Truly, truly amazing. So I just want to switch gears a little bit.
Yeah.
How are you preparing the next generation? How are you using purpose to strategically and intentionally equip the next generation?
Yeah, it's, and a way to think about it is it's always about education and it's about engagement. So we do a lot of the best practices that I'm sure many of your clients have or are working on. And, like with everyone, they go up and down in their effectiveness. But we, of course, have family governance structures. We have committees. Like I've got a whole group. I've mentioned this family homestead. I have this whole group on another angle of stewardship that's been working for multiple years trying to get that property to be net zero in terms of energy consumption. So, we have to be stewards of our planet as well as stewards. Well, if we want to be stewards of our children, they better have a planet with a healthy environment. So, we've got solar panels, we've got geothermal, we've got people worrying about efficiencies, trying to be stewards of that property. And that's part of how we work together as a family. But then we do a lot of education about the business, about being stewards of what Highlights is about. And that for us can be education about how the mission comes to life. So we have the executives come talk or record videos for the shareholders to really have the shareholders feel like, what is the good the company's doing, whether it's in a classroom or on a home, to try to get that emotional connection with the shareholders to what we do in their name, what the company they own does to create good. And we're very fortunate at Highlights because when everyone in our family, it turns out, once was a kid. So we really work hard to try to have them experience the products, get to meet the people who make the products, and feel proud about what we stand for and what we do. So they can connect at a lot of different places. And then we do ask them to get involved. They might have to volunteer in governance. They might go through a process. Like I went through a process where we had at that time a rotating position on our board of directors. So we would bring people in the family through. We do it a little differently now. We have like a fellowship, but we bring people in to experience how does the company make decisions as a board, and to meet the board members and to meet the executives and learn more in depth on the business. And one of the underlying things we want them to take away is that the people at the company, including the board, are always asking this question of what's best for kids. They're always asking the question of, does this align with our values? Is this a smart thing to do long-term strategically given our mission? So we have to do all the P&L things. We have to fight with margin. We have to make good business decisions, but there's always a layer of mission and purpose. And we've tried to find over the years ways for the family to see that in action so they would believe it and understand it. And for me, that's ended up being why I even came to the company. I mean, I did everything I could to not join the family business. And then I sat in 2 years of board meetings and said, holy cow, this company actually makes decisions in a way that I respect and want to be part of.
It's actually refreshing to hear this, Kent, because there's a lot of companies and individuals, that say this is what my values are, this is what my purpose is, and for many, those are just words, right? You are actually living it, you're embodying it, you are your purpose, and
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because there's this movement, and public companies, and I'm not casting aspersions at anyone, but for me, like, there was a moment where everyone was talking about what's your approach to corporate responsibility, and you have a corporate responsibility department, which usually or sometimes can fall in the marketing function.
yeah.
And for me, I at one point said, look, I don't want to have a corporate responsibility department. I want to be a responsible corporation, right? And I do think when you look at family businesses, like the way they behave in their communities, to me, so many examples, they don't label it. They just behave in a responsible way in their communities because they're parts of the community.
Yeah, they just do
And
it.
they just do
Yeah.
it. They don't
Yeah.
label it. It's not marketing. It's what makes, capitalism great, is when an entrepreneurial spirit, free enterprise cares about its community and its customers. That's when capitalism really works. If the only thing we care about is our shareholders, that's what we see a lot of. I mean, that's in my view, like, I'm a believer in conscious capitalism, kind of evergreen, sustainable economic. I'm a believer in these things, but we have to do capitalism differently, and it is the way that family businesses often just do it naturally.
Yeah, I think, one of the ways we can give back is by identifying, fulfilling, and delivering our purpose.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the end of the show.
Yeah.
It's flown by. It's fascinating conversation.
I'm
Like,
not watching
really
the clock. I'm just
fascinating.
having a great time chatting, Franco.
So I always ask our guests the same question, and it's a question for the senior current generation and as well as the next generation. Based on your experience, what's one piece of advice you can give both these groups?
But the senior and the next,
Yes.
I'm starting. I'm not the senior yet. I mean, in a way, I am, because we are. The family council and our governance, our board seats are all held for the most part by my generation. I think one thing I would say is what I remember experiencing when I was the up and coming generation is the tension that the next generation's not ready to let you in or hand it over or engage. And I'm going to have to admit, with some curiosity about myself, I've also felt, are we really ready to let the next gen take things on? But I think the lesson I've had is the only way these things keep going generation after generation is if the older generation brings that younger generation in. And we need to check at the door our ego about and our confidence or arrogance that we've got it figured out at our age. And let's invite these next gen folks in and give them voice, give them power, give them engagement, give them their roles earlier so they don't have to take them.
Great advice.
Great advice. I know it turns out I've figured out, Franco, I'm not going to be here forever.
Really? You're kidding me? You don't have that deal?
No, I guess in this, no, I don't have it, but we call it the final test of greatness. And so, the like letting the next group take on the stewardship, I sort of think of that's like, I'm only going to be successful in my role if this is still all successful when I'm gone.
And that's it. There you go. It's at the end of the day, it's not your business. You are just holding, it's your day in the sun. The goal is to leave it in a better place so that the next generation can have their go at it. So
that's right.
So Kent, if people wanted to find you and learn more about you, where would they find you?
Yeah, I'm active on LinkedIn. That's the best place to connect with me. I'm always trying to share and learn about things that affect children on LinkedIn. That's probably the best. Anybody who wants to learn more about our company, Certainly buy products. I mean, it is the holiday season. I don't know when this is going to drop, but highlights.com. You can read some of the history, see our profile, see what we do in the world. So yeah, highlights.com, or directly reach out to me via LinkedIn and see what we're up to and what we're talking about. That'd be fantastic.
Kent, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a real eye-opener, wonderful conversation.
It's a pleasure. I
And,
love talking about this stuff, Franco. Thank you.
and for the listeners, as our guests volunteer their time, they volunteer their wisdom, and, they do it selfishly, because the whole idea of the show was to create a safe space for you, the listener, because we recognize that being a next gen or sometimes part of a family business can be a lonely place from an emotional perspective. Like, Hootie talked about what's going on. Sometimes you think your issues are only yours. And the idea is to have a place where we can have guests that are just like you, similar issues, just sharing their experiences. So if something spoke to you or stood out, drop Kent a note, drop me a note. But most importantly, share it. Share the show with your friends and your peers. Kent, thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor having you on the show.
Thank you.